Good evening, everyone. This is something a little bit different today. We're not talking about, usually we talk about animated films. We're not talking about the animated film of The Hobbit, not just yet. This is a book review, which might be, I need to think about it, it might be a channel first, actually, doing a book review of some kind. Now, this isn't a new book. This book's been around for a while, since 1937, in fact. You have taken your first steps into a much larger world by diving into the world of Tolkien, and you have read The Hobbit for the first ever time. When did you finish this book? Was it a couple of days ago?
It only took me 30 years.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like, what was it, last week? What are we on? What day are we on? Tuesday? Monday. Yeah, it was like the Friday, I'd say I finished it.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So, yeah, very, very fresh.
Now, I've been giving you a dig in the ribs to read this book for a long, long time. You're working on some of your own projects. I don't want to say what they are and everything like that, but you are working on some writing projects. I will say that. And you have been reading a lot of fairy tales, fantasy books and whatnot, shorter stories, slightly longer novels. And I was like, dude, come on. If you're reading fantasy, you haven't read Tolkien, what are you doing? And I've been pestering for a while.
And it's always that kind of genre, which I've always loved. So it's really weird that I never visited it. I think it's because when I was younger, like we're part of that sort of 2001 was the year of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Like that was the time that both were turned into movie adaptations. And then when I was a kid, I mean, at first I didn't like Harry Potter. I mean, my brother was just like, "Oh, Harry Potter looks cool. We should go see it." And I was like, "It looks shit." But then I fell in love with it, and then that was the first thing that I experienced between the two. And then at school, it was basically either you loved Harry Potter or you loved Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like either you love Digimon or you love Pokemon. I gravitated towards Digimon. I gravitated towards Harry Potter. So everyone that loved Lord of the Rings, it was just like it was that kind of thing. You know, not fully, but you know, when everyone loves it, it just makes you kind of like, it doesn't intrigue me when everyone loves it. I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, it sounds really good. Everyone's enjoying this. It's just kind of like, you know what I mean? And that's where my brain naturally goes. And I loved Harry Potter and I read those books and I, was there at the first screening of the movies all the time. And it just never happens. So I got older and older and it was sort of like, and as I fell more in love with the fantasy genre and different fantasy, forms of media, it was always, I will watch it and I will read it. But also knowing it, the other thing it became was, it's like when you have a TV series and there's like 300 episodes. I mean, a good example would be like Bleach. That's got like 300 something episodes. Now, it looks really cool and it's something I believe that I would really, really love. But I'm like, it's a big commitment. I'm like, I'll get round to it. And Lord of the Rings always became that.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a while, but then it was like, it was at Christmas. My dad bought me the book. Like, he bought me The Hobbit. And I was like, right, I'm definitely going to read this. And I was just I was like, it's just got to happen. And I read it because I read the first chapter. And I actually wasn't... what's the word? I wasn't hooked from the first chapter. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was it did take me a little bit, not fully. It wasn't one of those of like, oh, it's a slow read. It's not. I don't think it's a slow read. I'll talk about the writing style in a bit because there is, whatever. But it's not a slow read. It's just that first chapter was quite. It didn't do it for me straight away. Like a good example would be like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That from the first two sentences, that literally I was away. Like that was boom. This was just sort of like, I was like, okay, cool. And I was getting into it and I was like, right, okay, cool. Can we get something going on? You know what I mean? Because it introduces a lot of characters.
A lot of characters from the off. Yes.
And the first thing for me was just like, isn't this going to be a lot of character bloat here? That's what I thought. And I remember you saying afterwards, because I said that to you and you were just like, you've got to think of it as like Thorin and Company.
Yeah, you were initially... Yeah, because when you this was quite a few months ago now. You attempted to read it, and I think you maybe got like maybe 2 or 3 chapters in, and then other stuff happened. You came back to it. Did you go back and reread those chapters again?
So I wasn't 2 or 3 chapters. I was literally the 1 chapter in.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I think it might have been the first page of roast mutton. I think
Hmm.
it might have been the first page. Um, and I was like, look, I'll come back to it. And then I was just reading other things, and I got that's when because I think I came away from it, and I think that's where I first then read Little Mermaid for the first time, because obviously a short story, and I thought, I can't wait for it, I'll read this. And then I just got really involved in loads of other things, and before you know it, again, it was to the wayside. It was just something that was just like, it just ended up on to the side again. And part of me thought, maybe it's just not going to be something I'm going to love. That's what I thought. But then I was like, no, I'm going to go back to it. I was like, I need to. I was like, I really want to read this. Like, let's go for it, right? You know what I mean? And yeah, and the rest of it, just from chapter 2, it was just brilliant. Every little
Yeah.
thing was just great.
You mentioned that chapter 2 was that turning point for you.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I remember initially when you were reading it, you messaged me and you were sort of freaking out, going like, "Dude, look, am I meant to keep track of like Owen, Glowin, Biffa, Bomber, Philly, all of them?" And I was like, "No, no, no. Just your main players. You've got Bilbo, Thorin, and Gandalf. They're the only three that you need to really worry about. The rest is just part of the company. It's part of the traveling troupe." I think they even
Yeah.
are referred to as like a circus troupe, like a troop of dwarves or something when they get to Bayonne, when they're introduced
Mm.
two by two. But yeah, it was really from Roast Mutton where it's like, right, we're out of the door. We're away on our very episodic quest. And I think you do appreciate stories like that, don't you? Like the very episodic ones, the
Yeah.
random encounter ones, stuff like Alice in Wonderland. And
Yeah, it's
yeah.
because you don't have to overthink, and you don't, because one thing I loved was I didn't come away from this. I mean, the thing is, we all love coming away from a story and go, oh, I wonder, did they mean this? We all love thinking about things and having our own interpretations. But one thing I loved about it was, I mean, this is very different from Alice in Wonderland, because Alice in Wonderland, I came away going, I have a clue what just happened there. But this was very like, I came away going, like, there wasn't any like, oh, but what did this mean? This could be this. It was just, that was just a nice adventure.
Mhm.
And that was something that made it so amazing. The fact that it was just like, but that was just a cool adventure. Like, it felt like you just went on an adventure. And
Mhm.
that's all it was. And that's the whole point of the story. There is no point to, well, I said there's no point to any of it, but you know what I mean? There is no sort of like, oh my God, this has got to happen and this happens. It's like, right, now we got to do this. It's just, we need to get some gold. We're going on an adventure. Cool. And that's pretty much what they say from the beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
because they even just say, right, we're going on an adventure. And that's one of the things that made it great. But I do think that's probably one of the reasons as well. It took a little, that first chapter didn't hook me, because we go on an adventure, and and then there was a bit of character bloat, and it was just, to me, very sort of like, okay, so there wasn't anything pulling me into it. Which, as I say, that is not a criticism on the first chapter at all. Like, I'm not going back saying, do you know what, the first chapter could have been better, because I think it works perfectly. I think that's what my reaction was. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think with a story like this, it is necessary to be quite exposition heavy in the first
Yeah.
chapter. It's we've got to set up our characters, set up their goal, their quest, the items that we have, and where we need to head to, and what we need to accomplish, basically. And there are some little moments in the first chapter which I guess stand out above the rest in some of it, in that it does go into quite a bit of lore, and it already at this point, although it is a very, some people say, like, simple kids book, I guess, in comparison to something like the Lord of the Rings or certainly the Silmarillion, it very much is. The writing style is very different, but you've even got bits at the beginning where Thorin asks Gandalf, like, how did you come by this key that opens the secret door? And he's like, well, many years ago, whenever a thing starts off of many years ago, I traveled into Dol Guldur, and your father was there, and I met your father, and he was in the dungeons of the Necromancer, and Azog the Goblin, and they're throwing all of these events out at you, even in this book. So, I mean, I don't know how much of that was completely fully fleshed out, because when you get to the Lord of the Rings and the appendices, there's loads of writings on those specific events. It goes into dates and battles and the whole thing. But it goes to show that there are already those nuggets of a greater world. And I guess tying in with the Studio Ghibli stuff that we mentioned recently with like Castle in the Sky, it gives you like these little bits of world building. It could be a name of a past king here. It could be this once great province here. And it doesn't need to go into any more information than that. It fleshes out that, like, the world building in this book alone is fantastic, and it only just
Yeah.
gets even more so when you get to the
The
Lord of the
thing
Rings.
is, I think the reason the world building works as well is because I don't think it was meant as some big world from the beginning. I think it was sort of like, it's one of those things of like, oh, we could do, it's like a story of this happened in the past, and that's cool, but it didn't need to be kind of like, like the first Star Wars. Like, there is stuff that happened, but it wasn't meant to be like. I don't think it was meant to be from the beginning. This big, giant, huge thing. It was meant to be. There's a past here. That's cool. We can reference it, and that's what makes it so good. And then when he, obviously I've not read Lord of the Rings yet or anything, but when he then developed it into this, there was already stuff to work with. And it was like, oh, then this because of this. So there was stuff to expand on. But I think the beauty of it comes from not trying too hard, from the beginning.
There's an interview with Tolkien's, J.R.R. Tolkien's son, Christopher Tolkien, who mentioned that The Hobbit was inevitably drawn into this larger world, this secondary world that his father was already working on way before this. He was already penning ideas that would become the Silmarillion and the backstory to Middle-earth and everything. When he was in Shellfire in the trenches, like that far back, way before The Hobbit was a thing. And The Hobbit was just this little yarn, really. You could imagine it by design. It's very bedtime story-esque. You could imagine him, reading his children at night time a chapter of the story, and they'll be like, "Oh, what happens next, Dad?" And he'll be like, "Oh, I'll tell you the rest tomorrow." And then he writes something down and comes up with, "Oh, what's Bilbo going to do tomorrow?" And it's very meandering. It's very, random encounter, and Bilbo gains an item or learns something on his quest or finds his courage, and then we move on to the next random encounter. But there is a little bit of a turning point, I think, in the third chapter, A Short Rest, where they go to Rivendell. And they go to Elrond to translate the runes on the swords. There's references to these are like swords from the High King of Gondolin, and Elrond is this very important elf, and we don't really get much more information than that. But already Gondolin is hearkening to the three great tales, as I mentioned, that Tolkien had already been writing when he was in the trenches. So he was already dropping references into this story from stuff that was unrelated, and of course eventually it did become related to it. But the writing style is very different, and it's something that I find incredibly charming about this book, is that it is very almost like Fireside. It is very conversational. It addresses the reader. There's fourth wall breaking moments, and it just feels so cozy. It feels like coming home every time I pick up this book and read it, and it's so unique to The Hobbit in that way, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the way it's told, with the whole, like, it talks to you when you're reading it. Now, I know it's not the only book in the world that does that, but it takes it to a new level. It's the kind of like even the reference in the Battle of the Five Armies, with the whole blah blah blah, this happened in the Battle of Five Armies, but that's not about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that happens later. And I feel like there's even there's a few other references like it anyway, but, like, you know what I mean? The whole, like, oh, this is going to happen later, or this is a story for another time, and blah 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 blah. Now, it's not, like I said, it's not the only thing to ever do that, but it takes it to that next level on it, and it's really good for it's just a really nice way to tell a story. It makes you really, really feel involved. Like it's someone, bringing you into this world, which is great. I mean, one thing for me, it's not a criticism, because I wouldn't change the way it's done, like, at all. But there's not as much interaction with the characters dialogue-wise as I like to enjoy when I read books. Like, I like to have the, a bit of humor between, like, the way characters talk, or they'll say this, and then there's not as much like you get some like it's 3 or 4 pages and there's no dialogue. Like, that does happen, and it's necessary for the way it's done, and it works. And it's not a criticism. It's just sometimes I was like, I would like a little bit more dialogue. I want them to kind of interact with each other a bit more. You know what I mean?
Could you just bump my audio down? Sorry, just a tad. Is that more in reference to Bilbo and the rest of the company and the rest of the dwarves? Because there are There are moments of dialogue in this. I think the two main chapters, you could almost imagine this as its own like theatre play, like short theatre play. The two chapters are Riddles in the Dark and Inside Information, and they're the two chapters with Gollum and Smaug respectively, where you have this huge back and forth, but this huge dialogue
Yeah, I
with
mean,
these characters.
it doesn't. I don't mean like it needs to be some huge conversation, but I just think there are sometimes that they do this and they go on the quest and they fight. And there's a lot of action going on, and that's great. But it's like, sometimes you don't hear a voice as often as sometimes maybe I might like. Like sometimes I'm there just, you know what I mean? Like it's like in a movie, when you get action scenes and stuff. Like there's a lot of you'll get action scenes, and obviously they just fight and they have the music playing in the background. Like there's a lot of that going on, and yeah, just not like they don't have as much conversations, which sometimes I think like it could be, you know what I mean? It could be fleshed out a bit with that. But as I say, it's not it's criticism because it works. It's just at first it was quite like, okay, there's a lot of heavy just reading through this, and then there's this happens, and then this, and they're journeying, and you're like, they haven't fucking said anything for a while. They have.
It's a long journey.
But they don't actually say the words, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. What did you think to the songs? Because I know a lot of people that read this book for the first time, certainly The Lord of the Rings, they really get burnt out. Tolkien loves his poems. Yeah. Tolkien loves his songs.
I really like the songs. I really enjoyed them. I think it was great, and I was there thinking, do you know what? It's quite interesting to see this. I mean, I've not seen the Hobbit movies. I don't ever plan to, but knowing,
you will.
Yeah,
you will.
Knowing kind of what they're kind of like, and it's the whole. Didn't I say it to you? Like, I mean, I said I've not watched them, but it's a kind of what Tim Burton did with Alice in Wonderland, like making a big plot out of something that doesn't need a plot, sort of thing. That's my understanding of it anyway at the moment. But they're a lot darker and a lot more serious. And it's kind of like the other way around. So when you get a lot of like Wizard of Oz, stuff like that, like they're not musical books, but then you get a musical out of it. It's kind of like the movies went in the opposite. I mean, I'd say I could be wrong. There could be songs in it in the movies. I don't know, but it feels like the book is kind of like, that's where you get your songs. That's where you get this. But then when you get the movie form, they're like, right, let's make it more serious, if that makes sense.
Well, I can tell you that there are songs in the movie. Most notably the first film, but therein lies the problem, is that it's a question of tonal consistency, because the Hobbit book, for the most part, is consistent in its tone. It definitely does ramp up to be a little bit more mature, where you have like the Battle of the Five Armies and Smaug destroying Lake Town and everything towards the end. But that's a natural progression leading to greater peril.
I didn't think it took a big darker tone. I think it was pretty much the same. It just felt like, I mean, the Battle of Five Armies wasn't this big battle that I expected it to be. It was more, you know what I mean? It was a lot shorter than I expected it to be. It wasn't some big, like, it seems more like a humorous kind of, like, just the way I felt the characters were, like a fight between them. You're like, oh, cool. And then it ends. You're like, okay, brilliant. I didn't image loads of blood and violence and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It was a bit of a different kind of battle than what I imagined it would be before I read it.
A lot of Tolkien's stuff with his battles is told in hindsight. So, the initial, in the book, the battle initially kicks off. Bilbo's knocked out relatively early on in the proceedings. He wakes up and then he learns from other characters everything that happened and the whole fallout and, conclusion of the battle. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do that in a film. I think they could have done that in a film quite effectively and it still work. But you can kind of see where the filmmakers' intentions were. Like, we can't just have Bilbo get knocked out in your final movie and wake up and...
That's because they made it into 3 movies.
Well, exactly. But to your point about the songs, some of the songs do feature in the films, but the issue is where you have like happy, sing-songy, jovial dwarves, and then you also throw in like really serious beheadings and battles and stuff to do with Sauron, and that's more of the Lord of the Rings stuff coming into it. And you have this mishmash of a tone. which I don't feel like you have in the Hobbit book, but unfortunately you do get in the movies. I don't want to tarnish your opinions too much of the movies. I'd quite like you to go into them as cold as possible. Actually, that sort of ties in with my next question to you, is that from the Hobbit book, did you have anything spoiled? Did you know where the story was going or any events that happened?
I knew of the dragon Smaug, like I knew who he was. I didn't know much about, aside from he was a dragon. That's all I knew, and I knew his name. I don't know how I knew that. I think it was just a general thing, you know what I mean, that I knew who he was. And I knew of Gollum. I knew of the riddle game. I knew that was a thing. But I didn't know how it went. I didn't know what the riddles were, how it ended, how it began. Like, I just knew that was a thing in it. Aside from that, and obviously I knew Battle of Five Armies was at the end. That, I think, because there was literally the movie Battle of Five Armies.
Well, so also Tolkien spoils that early on in the book.
Oh, yeah, he does. There's a Battle of Five Armies. Like, oh, is there now? Cool. And you know what I mean? But yeah, aside from that, no. I have a feeling that first bit of dialogue between Gandalf and Bilbo, the good morning, does that mean it's a good, like the whole thing, I feel like I'd heard that somewhere before, like it rang a little bit familiar. But aside from that, no, you know, I didn't know deaths of anyone or anything was spoiled, nothing. It was just completely like, I didn't know about how they found the swords at first, that he named the sword. I didn't have a clue that the spiders spoke. I was very surprised. I was like, okay, they're talking now. It was very like, because usually you get from spiders, they hiss and they make noises or they'll say something, but it's like they're saying it in a tone, whereas this just felt like they were just saying like, oh, we're going to do it. And they're like, okay, they speak English now. Okay, cool. It was just it was surprising. I enjoyed it though. I liked the way the characters were. I enjoyed all the characters. There's not, I can't think of a single character moment that I didn't like, to be fair. I don't think there was like, oh, I would have done that differently. Like, I think they were all handled really, really well. I was just surprised at some of them. I was like, oh, okay, we're going down that route, fair enough. But it was all done well, because the thing is, I knew it was more of a kid's book. You know, I heard that a lot. That was one thing a lot of people say. I was like, it's quite like a kid's book. You know, it's a very sort of fairy tale adventure in a way, you know. But I always had the tone of Lord of the Rings in my head. So I was like, it's going to be like a fairy tale adventure, a bit more sort of whatever. And then we went talking spiders and stuff. I was like, okay, so it is a really kid's event. It was nice though. I really enjoyed it.
I do think there is a shift towards the end. And one thing that I actually love about the book is it's almost an anti-climax, because you have Bilbo who's very comfortable, and that's interesting as well. That word comfortable appears so many times throughout the book. Tolkien really, you know, Bilbo was thinking of his comfortable hobbit hole and wishing he could be by his fireside, and that's what I love, because we are Bilbo reading the book. We all enjoy a comfortable lifestyle. You know, we like to get back home after a hard day's work or whatever, and there is just something naturally nice and warm and comforting about that. And he is thrown out of that comfortability and goes on this journey. But by the end, after everything he goes through, when he makes his return journey, the actual ending of the book itself is fairly low key. You know, in any other book, you would imagine that the ending of the story would be Bilbo conquers Smaug and kills Smaug himself, and this little hobbit escaped his hobbit hole.
Really doesn't.
And beat a dragon. And it really isn't that. And Bilbo is very much an observer towards the end. He's just sort of caught up in all these political machinations of all these different, you know, you got the elves, the dwarves, the men, like all vying for the gold, and then the goblins show up, and Bilbo's just there like, this war, this is like crazy. This is all out of my comfort zone. I can't get involved in this. And then he returns home to the same place. You know, he goes back home. He is changed, but I like that the moral of the story is that there's nothing wrong with this comfortable life. I think it's like one of the final lines of the book, where Gandalf says, "You're only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all," and Bilbo just replies, "Thank goodness." Like he is fine. He is contented with just being that. He's done more than any Hobbit ever has at this point. We'll have Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, of course, but I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's the whole just the whole simplicity and the whole innocence. It's the innocence, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
innocence of. It's kind of like when you with any book or movie or video game or whatever, you experience the world with the character. I mean, it's you know the characters learning things about the world. I mean, all at different paces. There, you know what I mean, all at different. But it's just that simplicity of, like you say, like he's at home, like he doesn't know about the big wide world, so the whole thing is like you're exactly the same as him. You're that comfortable in your home doing whatever. This is like, okay, there's this brand new world because we don't know about it. We've never been out there yet, and he's going out there exact same times. Everything feels like it's happening in real time.
Yeah. And there is a natural progression to the threat level, I think. Initially, it's the three comedy trolls. And then what's after that? Then we have the goblins and Gollum, where all these moments where Bilbo constantly proves himself again and again and again, because the dwarves in the book are just really kind of incompetent. They always like bundle themselves into some kind of danger or get captured or imprisoned or whatever, and Bilbo's always the one who has to get them out of it. And it takes a few attempts at that before Thorin is actually very grateful of that and notices it. I think it's really after the barrels, after he packages them all into the barrels.
Do you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of Thorin.
He's a bit curmudgeonly.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy him as well. I don't know, not as a character, like as in like I don't think he's a bad character, he's badly written or anything. But he's he's not a big fan. If I was there, I'd be like, I wouldn't speak to him afterwards. I'd be like, yeah, cool. You know what I mean? We wouldn't keep in touch.
He builds that friendship though, that kinship with Bilbo, I think, and then ultimately the gold and his greed and his pride getting in the way, which initially stalls their friendship, and of course the battle ends. I do really like their final heart-to-heart though, afterwards, where Thorin's in the infirmary tent, I guess, and that's really where one of the morals of the story is outlined quite poetically, where he just says, if everyone valued food and cheer above hoarded gold, this world would be a merrier place. But sad or merry, I must leave it now. I just love that. Like the wordplay there is just absolutely gorgeous from Tolkien. Maybe you could say a little bit on the nose with the meaning, in that Thorin basically just spells out the moral of the story, but I think it's just wonderfully done. That's one of my favorite lines from the book towards the end. And he parts with Bilbo in friendship. It's just like, that's nice. I like
my
that.
favorite moment forever though was the with Smaug. That was the best bit, I think. You know, for a while it was Riddles in the Dark, which I think I think a lot of people's favorite would have been that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was dark, obviously. You know, it was cool. it was mysterious. It was, you know, just and I think everyone would say exactly the same thing. So I don't think there's really anything I could say that loads of people haven't said. But when we got to Smaug, it was just, I just loved his character, and because again, it's a similar sort of thing to what you said, in the sense of like, you know, Bill doesn't kill the dragon, stuff like. He was a different dragon to what you'd expect. It was kind of, again, he talks. You know what I mean? It's that kind of, he felt almost friendly. You know what I mean? It was kind of like he felt like at first. You know what I mean?
At first, yeah, he lures you in.
Yeah. Like not the whole time. Not like he was like, bear hug kind of thing. Like he was proper like, from the beginning, he just felt, like I say, almost friendly, sort of like, all right, we're just chilling with a dragon, cool. Like, you know what I mean? As you do. I can't remember what he says exactly, but it's the whole like, take as much as you want. There's plenty here or whatever.
Oh, and to spare, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, do you know what I mean? You go in expecting breathing fire, blocking it with the sword, kind of like, no, I'm good. Like, that's what you expect. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, fair enough. And I just fell in love with the whole, like, the way he kind of spoke and the way he was. And then obviously he's this vicious dragon, and you're like, I like this dragon. I was like, this is cool. And I was like, and that made me really want to watch the Hobbit trilogy, because I was like, I really want to see the way this dragon is portrayed, because I think he'll come across really well. But I don't know. I don't know yet. We'll see if he does or he doesn't. But yeah, I was pretty sad when he died. I was liking this dragon. I was like, this is not okay. You know what I mean? I was like, I wanted to see more of him.
There are some surprises in the book like that. Again, like you know that the dragon's going to be conquered, but really it's just in 3 chapters we introduce Smaug, get to know his character, and then a couple of chapters later in Fire and Water, this random guy Bard shows up who hasn't been introduced in the book, fires a black arrow and just kills him dead in one shot, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's Smaug out the book. That's the initial conflict that you think is going to be the ending. That's where we started our story. We've got to defeat Smaug and get the gold. I love that they never really have a plan for that as well. It's just, we're just going to go there and get our gold back. Isn't there a dragon there? Well, yeah, there is, but like we'll deal with that when we get there. It's just like there is no plan at all.
Yeah, it's like it's that whole like, what are we going to do? I was like, guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
Like,
it also makes me laugh that when they get there, that's when Thorin mentions the Arkenstone. It's like you've walked all this way from the Shire. You've only right now told Bilbo why he's here, and the exact thing that you want him to steal to burgle for you is the Arkenstone. But yeah, no, the interaction between Smaug and Bilbo is definitely one of the highlights. I think, as you mentioned, Riddles in the Dark and Inside Information are definitely the two prominent chapters that people often refer to as their favorite one. I think one of my favorite moments is Fire and Water, is the ultimate defeat of Smaug. And I think probably subconsciously the reason for that is that I think when I was in infant school, I don't know what year I would have been in, you know, when you all sit on the carpet and Miss has like a huge children's book with like massive letters and like big pictures and everything.
Oh, she holds it out and turns the page if you look at
that
it.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like year 1, year 2, whenever that is. It was a long time ago.
If you're at special needs school, it's like year 7 or 8.
But I distinctly remember it was the Fire and Water chapter, at least a little bit of it, and it was, you know, Smaug burning the town, and I remember that image, and the thrush speaking to Bard, telling him about the weak spot and firing the arrow. I'm not making this up. I distinctly remember her reading that story. I'd love to know which version of the book that was, because it was just that. It wasn't, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't a whole abridged version of The Hobbit or anything. And I think that just sort of sparked that imagination, because even within just a few simplistic sentences in the book, Tolkien can just conjure such a wealth of images and imagination in your mind, I find.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that thing we said the other day of the whole you imagine things in a way, and it's just nice to imagine it in your head rather than just being shown it on a screen as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that as well helps with the tone, because there's a certain tone your head can capture that no movie ever will. You know, with the whole, you can have those singing goblins and stuff, and it was still quite a dark tone in my head in a way, but it wasn't as well. But like, if you had that on a movie, it either goes dark or it doesn't. Like you say, that there's a consistency and stuff, but in your head, it can just work.
Mm-hmm. I was actually going to mention that too. When you read, were you giving the characters voices in your head? When you got to the songs, were you trying to come up with like a little bit of like a ditty, a melody when you read the words?
Yeah, it was. Which one? I can't remember which one it was now. This is really annoying. But there was one in particular, like there was elongated words I had in my head of the way the song went, and I was like, this is a really cool song. I can't remember which one it was now, but the way just the sentences like kind of carried themselves over, and I was like, this is cool. And I was like, I don't really want to hear what other people have done, because like, I like my version of this. This is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I give them obviously voices and stuff. It's like, I think I can't remember if it was on a review or it was just I mentioned to you, but the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was like the movie. There's still to this day lines that characters say that I'm like, that's not how it's said, because I read the book first. So that's not how it's said. No, that's wrong. You don't say it like that. And I remember watching it in the cinema, having that with loads of lines, going, no, that's not it. No, you said it wrong. No, you don't pause there. Like the amount of things. So it's interesting, and yeah, it will be interesting to hear those songs on the big screen like that.
Well, there's loads of different versions. I mean, there's loads of audiobooks out there. Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum, has done an audiobook of The Hobbit, and he has his own way of singing the songs. You've got Blue Fax, which is a fantastic audiobook. That's my preferred one. And then, of course, you've got the animated Hobbit film from, was that the 70s, I think it came out, and then the newer ones.
The thing is, I've seen clips of the end of of how Gollum looks in Unexpected Journey. I've seen clips of like how he looks in there. He looks a little bit different to in Lord of the Rings, doesn't he?
Well, the CGI's improved.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought he looked a little bit too polished in some bits. Like I said, I've not seen it all, so I could be wrong, but there's little clips I saw, and I was like, he looks quite polished, and he looks like just like a little baby sometimes. And the way he smiles, do you know what I thought the way he smiles, I was like, that does work, but it just looks so like a polished AI baby face sometimes. I was a bit like, it's supposed to look a bit dirtier than that. Do you know what I mean? But one design which I thought was really cool was the like frog presence in the animated movie, which I saw a few clips of as well. I was like, it's really disturbing, weird look that I didn't get, and I was like,
Yeah,
I
it's
like that.
creepy.
Yeah.
He's got like the big like bulbous like blind eyes because he lives in the Lonely Mountain, not the Lonely Mountain, sorry, the Misty Mountains.
Yeah.
No, there's some very there's some cool designs to some of the characters in that, and also some very very weird ones. King Seawood Man says, "Do couple videos a day would be good. I need free time to do
3
other
videos
things."
a day. On a different book.
Yeah, you got one day to read another book. You got one day to read all of the Lord of the Rings.
I read the Kingdom Hearts novel last night, so I did read that, but it wasn't what I expected. And that's sad.
So memorable moments and characters. Then you've referred to so inside information. Would you say that Smaug is your favorite character then out of all of them?
I did really like him, and I was saddened when he went. I was like, but we got rid of him. But it was. Yeah, I was like, I wish we'd seen more of him. I was like, I would have imagine he just flown away, and I was like, oh, cool, right, he's going to come back in Lord of the Rings. That'd be cool, or something, you know. I like the spiders because I love spiders. I think spiders are great. And one reason I love spiders as well, I think, is because everyone hates them because they're creepy, and I think they're great. You know, the amount of times I'll have like a spider and I'll try and pick. Like I had a spider yesterday that I tried to pick up and it ran away from me. I was like, oh. Like I like spiders, they're cool, and I like when spiders are creepy monsters and stuff, and I think it's great. So I do love them, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Shelob. I haven't seen too much of what she looks like in the movies. Like if any, I can't really remember anything. I've seen bits of what she looked like in that game of Gollum. Like I've seen little clips, but I'm looking forward to that sort of thing because what I've heard is she's like basically just this evil entity in spider form rather than a spider. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense because I've not seen it or read it, so I couldn't explain what it is. But
she's a spider. She's a spider.
Yeah.
That Lord of the Rings game you were referring to, which is the second one, isn't it? Shadow of War. Something I can't remember what the second one was called. They turned her into this like really hot shapeshifter lady person who can transform into a spider.
No. I was on about I think I heard someone reference it was just the whole. She's just this evil presence, which she is a spider. But it's evil in the form of a spider, so it's evil first, then spider. If that makes sense.
Oh, that's Shelob's mommy. That's Ungoliant.
Oh, the heartless one.
Yes, that's Ungoliant. That's Silmarillion shit right there. So you haven't got to worry about that. But yeah, I guess setups for the Lord of the Rings then. So we are going to be watching Fellowship of the Ring. I was going to say we are watching it for the first time. I've seen it countless times. You've never seen it before, so I think I'm more excited than you because for the first time I get to watch it with fresh eyes.
3.5 hours.
That ballpark, I think. Yeah, 3:15, 3:20.
4.5, isn't it?
4:10.
4:10. Yeah.
So closer to 4, but yeah, so they're long. Thankfully, we're not watching all of them in a day. I have done that before, and I never want to do that ever again.
We could do, but I feel like they'd finish and then we'd be like, right, we're late for Aussie.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're going to be watching Fellowship. We're going to be pre-recording that. And I still need to think about how that setup's going to work, whether we're going to listen to it with earphones or whether I'm just going to have to turn the volume down to a certain level, which I don't want to have to do. So if you can find some like really good quality headphones, that'd be great. Or if not, then just rock your great Apple earphones or whatever you've got lying around. But we're going to be watching that Friday, and then I will endeavor to get that edited across the next week or the next couple of weeks when I get a little bit of free time. The clips from the movie, like the first time reaction videos that you see out there on YouTube. And I can't wait. I really can't wait. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope I haven't like bigged it up too much, but you've made the decision to, because you want to see how this story unfolds, and the Lord of the Rings being the massive book that it is, you're willing to watch the films of the Lord of the Rings first before eventually reading those books.
Yeah, I think because they're so huge. I mean, the thing is, I wouldn't put it past me getting in. I mean, because I got through the Hobbit pretty quick. I mean, I wouldn't put it past me getting through it in a few weeks. But because of obviously the length it is, I didn't want life to get in the way, and then it's like, right, it's a few months down the line because I'm really sort of like, I really want to experience it, and also because of when it came out as well. Like the movies came out in 2001. I think a lot of people my age experienced the movies first, then went to the book. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go down the same route as majority of people my age. I'm going to do that. I'm going to watch the movies, then I'm going to read the books. Because it is something because the thing is as well, it's been really hard not to read anything online. Because I'm like, I want to just I really want to get into it. But yeah, I'm just, so yeah, Friday's going to be like, right, I can actually do it now. But I have read the first chapter.
Yes, because it was randomly at the back of your copy of The Hobbit.
I don't know why. It was really weird because I got to it and I was like, all right, ends. And I was like, hang on, what's this? And then it was like Fellowship of the Ring. I was like, is this the first chapter? I was like, I don't really know. And then I read a bit and then I just kept going. And I was like, I just kind of got hooked on reading it. And I was like, this is the first chapter, isn't it? And I got to the end of it and I read it. I was like, why was that even in there?
Yeah, it's so random.
And it just stopped.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I have read the first chapter.
Bath time, yeah, the same experience as me. A lot of people our age, as you mentioned. I went books first. Oh, sorry, I went books first, and I'm extremely happy with that as my experience. Oh no, see, I was movies first. I was definitely movies first, but I did pick up the book from my school library around year 6. So I think it was either just before or after the second movie had come out. I think I picked up the book for the first time. And I got to the Great River and tapped out, and I didn't revisit it until many, many, many years later. But yeah, it's different strokes for different folks. I think you'd have a very different experience actually reading the book first and going into the movies. You might be a little bit more unforgiving, maybe, with some aspects of the film. I'm not sure. As is, a lot of people who read books first, then see the films. Oh, well, they left out this, they changed this.
Yeah, I do think that's one thing. If I read a book first, like you say, you're more unforgiving with, you see bits in the movie, do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if you experience it the other way around, you're kind of like, this is better. You know what I mean? Like, you'll read the book and be like, I prefer they did this. I don't know why they did that. But also, like, I mean, because the thing is, we said this before, sometimes it does hurt the imagination because you'll see what you see in the movies and you're like, if only I imagined it it kind of takes that away sometimes. But I think there are other times where the movie can enhance it because you'll imagine certain things. And if there's a slight bit the movie does that just helps that inspiration, you're like, I can kind of see it like this as well. And do you know what I mean? So I think it has that whole, you watch the movies afterwards, you're a bit more like, why'd they do that change? But if you do it the other way around, you're like, didn't like that change. I like how I'm experiencing it now, if you know what I mean. Or if the movies did do something, you go, actually, I prefer that look. You can imagine that. I don't know. I do think it is overall better to kind of like book first because you get your imagination. But yeah, like I say, I want to experience it pretty much the same way majority of people my age did. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to influence your opinion too much, but yeah, I think there are different aspects to that. There are some things that the films do, in my opinion, a lot better than the book regarding certain characters. There's other things and certain plot cul-de-sacs and certain characters that they maybe make a little bit more cartoonishly evil, whereas in the book they're more morally grey. There's a bit more nuance to it. Certain things like that, all stuff done for the necessity of adaptation and a big blockbuster movie, essentially. Well, it's not impossible. The book is, I was just having a look at Fellowship, how many pages it was. Just under 410 pages. You've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a little bit of Friday to get it done if you did want to.
To be fair, that the one thing, it was either one or the other first. I didn't want to do like book one, then the movie, then book two, then I didn't want to do it like that. It had to be all of one and all of the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to get the
think as an overall, like, because we said before, like, movies first does sometimes hurt the imagination of the characters. But I've gone in with the Hobbit book first, so I've already got my imagination of the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think with the Lord of the Rings, I've reached a point where I view the book as its own thing and the movie as its own thing, and I appreciate both for what they are. They are very, very different, though. But I do think the Lord of the Rings films, Bath Time, where it says the films are the best adaptation, I think, possible, but are widely different to the large parts of the book. Yeah, I think it retains the same spirit for the most part. Bath Time says, I like to think I'm an imaginative person, but I'm not a musical person. The soundtrack of Lord of the Rings has greatly improved my reading experience. Yeah, it's, oh, God, wait till you hear that soundtrack. Carl says, was good to see the photos of the posters getting signed. I know, I just hope they get here in one piece. I've got something else Lord of the Rings related on its way, all the way from sunny Australia. Feels like we're in Australia today with the heat here in the UK. I'm barely making it through this live stream, but here we are. So I'm hoping that arrives in one piece as well, and then I'll have a fun new unboxing video for something Lord of the Rings related. Bath Time says, "Oh, have you had your posters done?" Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and show it off my phone now if I can. But yeah, they posted pictures. Ian McKellen signing my posters, which was cool. And some fucker leaning his hand on my poster. I wanted to reach through the screen and slap the shit out of him. Let's see. Here he goes.
Come back with a giant line through the middle, like they're cute.
There he goes. He's signing my poster right there, and there he goes on the Return of the King one.
What if he had handled like salmon that day and they come back stinking of fish?
Look at the guy. Look at this fucker. That hand right on top of the crease of the poster. Not happy about that, but yeah, they're done. I'm very happy.
He could have egg-smelling hands and they come back and like they smell funky. That could be a thing.
It could be a thing, but I will take egg-smelling Lord of the Rings poster that has.
It could have a giant crease in the middle when they come back.
Now they just need to get Sean Bean and Viggo Mortensen, and I will be a very, very, very happy man. So yeah. Right, I think we're probably going to round it off there tonight. We've got on slightly longer than we expected. I think we were trying to aim for about like 20 minutes, half hour. But we're going to cap it off here. We will be back in 2 days' time with another Studio Ghibli review. We are talking about My Neighbor Totoro, which I still haven't watched yet, actually. I need to get on that either tonight or tomorrow. We'll be back Wednesday at 8 p.m. Bath Time. I guess he missed it. He says, did Dale enjoy The Hobbit? Missed the start.
No. Not at all. Shit.
Go back and watch the video. Bath Time.
It's good.
Carl says, enjoy Aussie this weekend, guys. Oh yeah, we will. We'll have a good time.
Unless he dies on Friday. Could happen.
But okay, no, this is going to sound fucking horrible. I was going to say we kind of want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. We absolutely do not want that to happen.
Last song, it'll be the best way to go.
But if he did go, that it would be the best way to go. Yeah, if he Tommy Coopers it,
he would love it as well. He would agree.
Have you seen the prices for him at Birmingham Comic Con?
Like what, £500 or some shit?
So as far as I'm aware, if you want to get something personally signed by Ozzy on his own, or a photo with Ozzy on his own, you first have to buy the Ultimate Sin package, which is £666, which is quite a cool price. I'll give him that, but also absolutely fucking egregious. You've got to buy one of the whole family. That's like a signature of the whole family, a photo with the whole family. You have to get that first before then paying extra for Ozzy, and then you're talking like an extra 300. It's if you like want a guitar signed by him, it's 750. If you want a photo, it's an extra 300. Because Sharon hasn't made enough from how many seats are in Villa Park.
Wow, that's it's going to set you back over £1,000.
Honestly, Carl said, yeah, Sharon will sell tickets to see his gravestone. I believe it. There'll be like one of those, when you need a piss in a train station, you have to put like £1 in and the little turnstile. It'll be that. But it'll be like scan your card.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
I mean, just think, I keep saying to you, I don't want this video to go on any longer than it is, but imagine how much money they're making for that. I know they've said like it's for charity. I believe some of it's probably for charity. The Loose Change is probably for charity. I think there's a considerable fund going to themselves.
The 1p's and 2p's that they forget about.
The 1p's and 2p's. Nice. Right, guys, we're going to round it off there. Have a very good night, and we will see you in a couple of days' time for some Studio Ghibli. Take care, everyone. Oh, no, my mouse is disconnected. Okay, we're back. See ya.